Type 1, the commando recruit. You're 19. You're standing on a railway platform with a kit bag and a bad haircut when the sergeant major asks for volunteers for dangerous service. He does not explain what dangerous means. He doesn't have to. You step forward anyway. 2 weeks later, you're at Achnacarry in the Scottish Highlands with a few hundred other men who thought they were fit. They run you up the death slide, through freezing rivers, over live ammunition on the assault course. They tell you that from now on, you're not line infantry anymore. You're expected to move faster, carry more, and complain less. Fewer than 1 in 3 will finish the course. Nobody wants to be the man sent back. They hand you a green beret, a Fairbairn Sykes fighting knife, a Thompson submachine gun, and enough explosives to blow a hole in something expensive. You learn to march 7 miles in 60 minutes. You learn to climb cargo nets in wet boots. You learn that if you hesitate on a raid, the hesitation spreads faster than bullets. Then they send you across the channel on a dark sea in a boat that smells like diesel and vomit. You hit a beach at night, kill a sentry in silence, blow a radar station, and run back to the surf before dawn. On paper, it's a successful operation. In practice, it means 1 man missing at roll call and another screaming for morphine with his leg hanging wrong. You carry chocolate, cigarettes, and a letter from home in an oilskin pouch. Her name is Elsie or Margaret or Anne. You haven't answered her in 12 days. What would you write? Dear Mum, we strangled a man before breakfast. Weather's been cold. The sensor reads the rest anyway. Type 2, the airborne paratrooper. You volunteered for this as well. That already tells people something is wrong with you. They pay you extra parachute pay, not enough to matter and not nearly enough to jump out of an aircraft at night with 80 pounds of kit tied to your body. You train to exit in sticks, count to 4, and pray the silk opens. You learn that the jump itself isn't the hard part. The hard part is landing in the wrong field, in the dark, alone, while machine gun fire walks across the hedgerows and your battalion is somewhere out there in pieces. The red beret makes you look elite. It also makes you visible. On D-Day, some men drown before firing a shot. Their equipment drags them under in flooded fields and canals. Others land miles from the drop zone and spend the night assembling a war from fragments. You carry a Sten, a grenade bag, a clicker, and a map you can't read while falling. By morning, half your plan is gone, but the objective is still there. You are told airborne troops are shock troops. That means surprise, aggression, initiative. It also means nobody is close enough to help when things go wrong. At Arnhem, entire battalions fought as isolated pockets because radio sets failed, drop zones were too far from the bridge, and the enemy was stronger than expected. You don't need all the details. You need one. Elite doesn't mean protected. Type 3, the Army Ranger. You're American now, and the language changes, but the logic doesn't. Volunteers only. Harder training, higher standards, better reputation. Better odds of being sent somewhere ordinary men are not expected to survive. You learn cliff assaults, amphibious landings, night navigation, and what it means when an officer says the objective must be taken at all costs. At Point du Hoc, Rangers climbed 100-foot cliffs under fire with rope ladders and grapnels, while the sea threw them against the rock face. The guns they came to destroy had already been moved, which is the sort of military detail that would be funny if men did not die for it. You carry a rifle, Bangalore torpedoes, grenades, wire cutters, and enough fear to make your hands clumsy. The first man up the cliff becomes a target for every German above him. The men below keep climbing because stopping is worse. Some Ranger battalions earn immortal reputations. Others get cut apart at places like Cisterna and become lessons instead of legends. The badge on your shoulder says you are selected. The casualty list says selected for what? Type 4, the Marine Raider. You're in the Pacific now, heat instead of mud, coral instead of hedgerows. The jungle rots everything: boots, uniforms, food, skin. You train for rubber boat landings, scouting, close quarters fighting, and long patrols through islands that do not care whether you live or die. People back home hear the word raider and imagine something glamorous. What it often means is paddling toward a black shoreline at 2 in the morning, trying not to cough, then spending the next 18 hours wet, hungry, and hoping the Japanese haven't heard the boats on the reef. You move light because the jungle punishes weight. Then you realize light means short on water, short on ammunition, short on everything. Raiders were built for quick strikes, but war has a way of using specialists as regular infantry whenever it gets desperate enough. At Guadalcanal in New Georgia, men trained for raids ended up in grinding jungle fights against bunkers, snipers, disease, and exhaustion. Malaria does not care how elite you are. Neither does artillery. The title stays special. The death feels ordinary. Type 5, the long-range desert group patrolman. There is no front line where you work, only distance. You are dropped into the North African desert in a truck loaded with fuel, water, machine guns, spare parts, compasses, and enough maps to pretend the desert can be understood. It can't. Your enemy is not just the Africa Corps. It is navigation error, radiator failure, sunstroke, sand in the guns, sand in the engine, sand in your teeth, and the knowledge that if you break down 200 miles from extraction, nobody is coming quickly. The LRDG does not fight fair because fair fighting is for men who expect reinforcements. You survive by observation, speed, deception, and leaving before the other side understands what happened. You spend days watching roads through binoculars, counting trucks, noting timings, marking fuel dumps, then vanishing again. Sometimes you guide raiders. Sometimes you become raiders. Sometimes you sit so long in silence that when the first burst of Vickers fire comes, it feels like the desert itself has started speaking. You shave less, sleep less, and learn that thirst makes cowards of men faster than bullets do. Type 6, the SAS trooper. The stories make it sound clean. Jeeps racing across moonlit dunes, machine guns firing into parked aircraft, demolition charges ticking under wings. Sometimes it really is that simple. More often it is navigation at night, engines half dead, enemy airfields farther than expected, and the cold realization that if one truck throws a track, the whole patrol may disappear in the sand without a witness. The SAS is small on purpose. That is what makes it useful. 4 or 5 men can do what a battalion cannot. Appear from nowhere, hit fuel, aircraft, and communications, then leave the enemy guarding shadows for the next month. You carry extra ammunition where seats should be, water where comfort should be, and enough explosives to turn a runway into a crater field. You are not there to hold ground. You are there to make the enemy spend men, fuel, sleep, and confidence. One raid might destroy dozens of aircraft. Another might end with a patrol lost, captured, or scattered across the desert on foot. The public remembers the successful photographs. It remembers the jeeps. It rarely remembers what the desert does to the men whose engines stop. Type 7, the SBS canoe raider. Other special forces arrive by truck, parachute, or landing craft. You arrive 6 inches above the waterline in a folding canoe with a paddle, a dagger, limpet mines, and the understanding that one cough at the wrong moment can get everyone killed. You train to navigate by shoreline, current, and darkness. You learn how long a man can sit half frozen before his hands stop working properly. You learn how to place a mine by touch on the hull of a ship you are trying not to scrape. During operations like Frankton, small teams paddled into defended harbors to attack merchant shipping from inside the perimeter. It was the sort of mission that sounds impossible because it nearly was. The sea is not impressed by bravery. Canoes capsize. Tides separate teams. Men miss extraction points by minutes and die by miles. If the enemy catches you in blackened face paint with explosives in your boat, there is no useful conversation to be had after that. The headlines call it daring. Daring is another word for expose. Type 8, the SOE operative. You are not supposed to look like a soldier at all. That is the first difference and the most dangerous one. Uniform, if you are captured in uniform, offers a category. Civilian clothes with explosives in your bag offers none. They train you in sabotage, codes, dead drops, silent killing, forged papers, wireless procedure, and how to answer questions without answering them. Then they drop you into occupied Europe with a radio, a pistol, a cyanide pill in some cases, and a cover story that has to survive the attention of policemen, informers, collaborators, and anyone else who notices a stranger too quickly. Your job may be to blow a rail line, organize a resistance circuit, receive an airdrop, move arms, identify targets, or simply keep transmitting. The radio is the most valuable thing you carry and the most likely thing to get you killed. German direction-finding teams can locate a careless operator in minutes. One transmission too long, one routine too fixed, one contact too eager, and the whole network starts folding in on itself. Officially, you are part of a great clandestine war. In practice, you are one person in a borrowed room listening for boots on the stairs. Type 9, the OSS Jedburgh. By now, the war has become more complicated than raids and sabotage. You are dropped in a three-man team, usually into occupied France, sometimes beyond, with a radio operator, an officer, and a local language speaker. Your job is not just to fight. Your job is to turn scattered resistance into something that can fight on purpose. You parachute in after midnight with weapons containers and signal plans. By dawn, you are meeting men who do not know whether to trust you, asking for names, routes, safe houses, explosives, transport, and local politics in the same conversation. You carry a carbine, a pistol, code sheets, and enough diplomatic skill to keep rival resistance factions from shooting each other before they shoot the Germans. You are part soldier, part spy, part organizer, part liar. You arrange ambushes, train partisans, call for supply drops, report on enemy movements, and try to keep everyone together long enough for conventional armies to arrive. Success means bridges blown, rails cut, communications paralyzed. Failure means betrayal, reprisals, and villages, learning what occupation looks like when anger is armed. Type 10, the Special Operations Commander. You no longer carry explosives yourself, you carry priorities. From London, Cairo, Algiers, or a rear headquarters somewhere with maps on the wall and ashtrays full of cigarette ends, you decide which target matters more. A bridge, a rail yard, an oil dump, a wireless station, a V-weapon site, a harbor, a railway junction. Men you have never met will die because you chose one over the other. A successful special operation might tie down thousands of enemy troops for the price of a handful of raiders. It might also send those raiders into a mission planned on faulty intelligence, weak weather reports, bad maps, and optimistic assumptions made by people sleeping under electric light. At this level, everything sounds clean. Interdiction, disruption, denial, strategic effect. What those words often mean is a man underwater in a harbor with a mine on his back, or a woman in occupied France burning code sheets as boots hit the stairs, or a paratrooper hanging dead from a church roof because the wind changed and no one below could help him. Special operations are called surgical by people who are not in the operating room. The math is simple. Tens of thousands served in commandos, airborne formations, raiding units, clandestine services, and resistance liaison missions across the war. Many became casualties. Many more were captured, broken, drowned, burned, shot, or simply disappeared into categories the public never learned. Everyone wore some version of courage. Not everyone paid the same price. This was special warfare in the Second World War. Not a collection of legends, a hierarchy of risk. A machine that took volunteers, selected the hardest, trained them to move in silence, and spent them where ordinary soldiers could not go. The missions were smaller. The myths were bigger. The graves were just as real.